Okay, go ahead.
All right, great. Well, my name is Justin McAdam. I'm the chair of the Distress Unit Appeal Board. I want to welcome everyone here this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We have a number of items on the list today and a number of updates from the team at Gary Community Schools. As we have done in the past, we will start with public comment after we go through the approval of the minutes. And so if you do want to provide that public comment, please send a message to Courtney function here in WebEx, and she will call you when it is your turn. I do want to step back and note that we have posted the agenda and notice of the meeting in compliance with the open door law, and that we do have a quorum here today. Our first item of business is the approval of the November 12th, 2020 public meeting minutes. Everyone's had a chance to look at those. Are there any corrections or comments for the meeting minutes? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Paul Joyce?
Yes.
Wes Bennett?
Yes.
Tracy Brown? Rebecca Kubacki? Rebecca, you there? Did we lose her?
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you are. Your vote for the minutes? Oh, she's back on mute.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Justin McAdam? 5-0.
All right, motion carries unanimously. Our next item of business will be the public comment. Courtney, have we had anyone sign up for public comment today?
Yes, I do have one individual who has signed up, Trina Davis. So let me get this all kind of set up real quick.
And as a reminder, while Courtney's getting that set up, we do allow everyone 3 minutes to provide their comments, and Courtney will provide a timer on the screen for that, and we just ask that you try to keep your comments to that 3 minutes, and we'll gently remind you if you're running over time.
Okay. Let's see. All right, Ms. Davis. Hi there. You are unmuted, and we can hear you.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to call in today and thank the district for the meals that the kids are still receiving. It's been hard with the kids being at home, every day and they eat a lot. And just the extra meals from the school district has really helped us to get by. I lost my job back in April, so this has really been helping me. And I also understand that we're going to get an EBT card coming soon. So I just wanted to thank the district for that because it really has been a big help. And also I wanted to thank Dr. McNulty for the Thanksgiving basket. And Miss, I can't remember her name, but she works with the parents for the basket that we got at Thanksgiving because that helped quite a bit too. So just wanted to thank the district and keep doing the great things that you guys are doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate them.
Thank you.
All right. That is the only individual I had signed up for public comment.
Thank you, and thank you for providing those comments. Our next item of business is an update from Courtney on the school corporation fiscal indicators. You'll recall that we review this on an annual basis, and does a lot of that work in the background.
Yes, I wanted to give you all a quick update on where things stand. So we have, I did convene the Fiscal Indicators Committee. We met 3 different times, October through start of December, and our task ahead of us was to identify if there were any necessary changes for the fiscal indicators that we currently had. We actually did know going into this that we were going to have to make changes because this coming release of the indicators will be the first time we include data from 2019, which was the year that the accounting fund structures changed for school corporations. So we knew there were some changes we had to make associated with that. So through that process, we, like I said, we held 3 meetings. We took public comment at each of those different meetings. After the second meeting, we also released a memo kind of summarizing where we thought things were headed and kind of some open questions that we were still sorting out. Sent that out both through our listserv and specifically sent it to various associations so they could get it to their members as well. So we did receive some additional feedback via email in response to that summary. And so at the start of December, we did make our recommendations as to changes for the indicators. And the 2 primary changes that we had, first would be the committee recommended that 2 of the indicators be completely eliminated. Those 2 indicators were tuition support per ADM as compared to general fund expenditures per ADM, and general fund salaries and benefits as compared to general fund expenditures. In both of those cases, the accounting structure change that occurred reduced the value of those particular indicators. Given the opportunity to transfer money between the education fund and the operations fund, the committee felt that we were not going to be able to identify the same red flags that we would have seen before with those particular indicators. The other primary change that was recommended by the committee that is a little bit more of a universal change was to expand the fund classifications that we show on the indicators. I'll give just a couple of examples of that. So we decided we would break out debt funds into their own fund classification. Same thing with capital funds, break those into their own fund classification. The thought process being there is previously those were grouped in under all other local funds, which really then when you had a school corporation that maybe issued debt in a particular year, suddenly saw a dramatic increase in revenue, or if they started a construction project, had a sudden increase in expenditures. So it was pretty difficult with the way things were grouped previously to really identify what had changed. So we did expand from previously we only had 5 classifications. We've expanded that out now to, I believe there's 12 or 13. I forget the exact number that we settled on. But overall, I think that will allow the users to be able to have a better understanding of what is going on with the different school corporations. So those were the primary changes. We did provide a report to the state budget agency to then be provided to state budget committee pursuant to the statute. And that report is included in your board packet, so that kind of summarizes the changes that we made. And at this point in time, all of it has been turned over to MPH, Management and Performance Hub. They are working on actually standing up the indicators, and we plan to have the indicators released prior to the end of the year. So with that, I am happy to take any questions on that process and where it stands.
Any questions for Courtney? All right. Well, Courtney, thank you very much. Appreciate all the work that you put into that. I know that it is not an easy task and takes a lot of your time. So appreciate your diligence on that effort.
Sure.
We will move to our next item of business, which is our regular update from the Gary Community School Corporation. We have a number of items here, and we'll sort of take them in sequence, and then we can do Q&A afterward. The first is a general update from Dr. McNulty.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi. I wanted to give a couple updates on some things that are happening within the district. And the first is, as I mentioned, I believe last month, we did complete our teacher negotiations and they were finalized. The teachers did meet and they ratified the contract this past month. The district is seeking a tax anticipation warrant to enable us to pay the teachers for their raises in January. And I know that our CFO, Nicole, will be speaking about that at the end of this report in greater detail. But we're excited to be able to offer them a raise, long overdue, as everybody knows, and they've worked really hard for it. So we want to thank them. I also am excited to say that the district recently completed our federal audit review through the IDOE for for our title funds. I attended the exit meeting with the IDOE. They had a large group that met with our title staff, and I'm proud to say that our title team at Gary did an outstanding job putting together policies and procedures to correct a lot of our findings. We were verbally told by the IDOE that it was the best audit that we've had in years, and that we'll get our findings as far as a report here within the next couple of weeks. And then we have 30 days to respond from there to correct any last minute things. But it was the best audit they said we've had in a long time. We were able to complete and clean up a lot of the old findings. So I'm very happy and proud of our title team. So nice job, everybody. I also want to talk about, we are looking to have an anticipated return to school for our school district in person. Our target date is January 19th. And some have asked, why January 19th? We picked January 19th to get us past the holiday break so that if people are not socially distancing, we'll have that couple of weeks if there is a surge for those numbers hopefully to come back down, and also to get us past Martin Luther King Day so that we can take a look at the numbers and begin school safely. So we are working with our staff, our administrative team, and working with the teachers tomorrow. We have a large Zoom meeting scheduled with our teachers to go through last-minute details. But at this point in time, we are looking to start back to school January 19th. We did do a survey of our parents that we have been receiving back in pieces. We've got about 2,200 responses so far from our parents, and we'll continue to get those back over Christmas break. But right now, at this point in time, 56% of our families are saying they're preparing to stay at home still, even if upon our return on January 19th. So again, we're still preparing to have live instruction, and our teachers will teach with the virtual board. So they'll teach as if both kids are still here, because we'll have boards set up in every classroom, and they'll just teach remotely to the kids that are home. So the kids will just turn on the camera, turn on their Chromebook at home, and see the live instruction that's happening. I also want to talk about our teachers are working with us second semester on piloting some reading curriculum. Our reading curriculum is pretty outdated, and so we want to try to get some new reading curriculum in place for next school year. So we'd like to pilot some new reading curriculum around the district so that the teachers can make some recommendations to us going forward so that we can try to have a book adoption that would encompass also digital books for next school year for our students. So we're excited about that. Additionally, our IT department, and I know Mr. Darrell is on the chat here today with us, on the panel with us today, so he'll be able to speak more about this. But our IT department has been very busy, not only managing all of the Google Chromebooks this year and the Google platform, but also working on enhancing our redundancy for the district. You might remember at the beginning of the school year, we had to close school for the first couple of days of school. We had a big microburst storm that came through the district. But with that came our power went out. Our district currently only, all of our systems, and I'm not an IT person, so I'm speaking in layman's terms, all of our IT network goes through one hub, if you will, and that's Williams Elementary School. So if Williams Elementary School goes down, the whole district goes down, and that's a problem. So especially when we're using so much technology. So I've charged the IT team with trying to mitigate that issue and trying to get a redundancy, meaning two hubs, if you will, for that to go through. So they've been working diligently on getting that rectified going forward, and I'll let him clarify any issues going forward. I've talked about as much as I know about that at this point. I also have been telling you about the sale of the buildings. We have recently sold 20 of our buildings that we've had up for sale. We've got approximately 10 left, which I think is great. We continue to seek viable buyers for the rest of those properties and continue to move forward. We have posted all of the buildings that we have sold on our website because we've had lots of people asking about those and for how much we sold them for as well. Additionally, as I spoke with people regarding the referendum when we were in that process, I made a promise that we would have an oversight committee, if you will, so that we could have a cross mix of people from around the community meet with me throughout the referendum, after the referendum passed, so that we could talk with them about the dollars received and the dollars going out and be transparent with that. I have been meeting with people around the community since the referendum has passed to say, let's not call it an oversight committee. Let's call it the referendum ambassadors, because there was some confusion about oversight and what that meant. And it never was to be replacing the advisory board. And that was some of the confusion. And that's never the point or the purpose. We certainly need the advisory board, and I continue to work with them closely, and I want to continue to do that. So I'm calling this the Referendum Ambassador Committee. We have lots of interest in it, and I'm excited about that. So those applications and the criteria will be on our website for people to look at in January, and we hope to have a large group of interest in that throughout the community, so I can continue to meet with those folks as we move forward. And then lastly, I want to thank Dr. Smith. I think this is his last meeting. I'm not sure, but if this is, I want to thank Dr. Smith for his continued help and support. He's been a valuable person for me to be able to continue to go to, and I hope that we can continue to work together closely, even though he's not going to be necessarily on this board, but I look to him for guidance as we move forward. That's all I have at this point.
Well, Dr. McNulty, you stole my thunder on that one, so I'm going to jump in on that one and say that I too want to thank Dr. Smith for his service on this board over the past year and his engagement with you and your team across the district. I think his support has been invaluable in getting us to where we are, and I think in getting the referendum passed. And so I just want to take a moment to thank him formally from the board for his service, and look forward to continuing to work with him through the legislature and just around the hallways here.
Yep.
So thank you, Dr. Smith.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say my comments to end, but since we're dealing with it now, let me just indicate that I have enjoyed working with Dr. McNulty. I think her attitude has been refreshing compared to at least one of them in the past, not the most recent person, but the initial person. Big difference in the attitude on the part of Dr. McNulty. I found her to be receptive. I have found her to be sincere in what she's saying, and until proven otherwise, I certainly am pleased with her performance. And I look forward to continue to work with her, because these are Gary students, and believe me, I'm not going away. I won't be on DUAB, but I'm not going away. And then I want to thank you and Courtney, Mr. Chairman, because you have been so receptive to my engagement. I'm not sure that's always been the case in the past, and I really appreciate your listening to me and responding to my concerns. And believe me, the concerns that I've expressed are not just Vernon Smith's concerns. They have come from the community, and the community is contacting me constantly. I had to tell one citizen who was calling me almost 4 or 5 times a day that I have no control over the Gary Community School Corporation. Please go to the persons who have your answers. And I try not to get impatient with my constituents, but I failed in being patient. Most recently, I had to tell her to go to the sources, because she was calling me 3, 4 times a day. But I am pleased I have opportunity to serve. I do, once you finish, if we're finished with Dr. McNulty's report, I do have some questions.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Smith, thank you. Thank you for being that voice of the community. You've been an invaluable asset as we've gone through this, and I've certainly, and I know I speak for Courtney as well, have enjoyed working with you this time around. I know Courtney has worked with you before through this, and I hope that you'll continue to engage with us and reach out to us and be that voice for your community to this board. So thank you. If we could, I'd like to let the Gary team, because we have so much, get through all of the sort of updates they have and then come back around to questions at that time, if that's all right with you.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, I believe next up we have Ms. Kim Bradley to provide an update on curriculum for us.
Yes, I am going to share some curriculum updates. Primarily, I was going to share with you the data from our most recent formative assessment, which is part of the Path Forward. Let's see, I think I can.
All right.
Okay, I'm able to share now? Okay.
Yes, you should be able to present now.
All right. So I put together a little presentation that might make it a little easier to follow. So the formative assessment that we administered in September to our kindergarten through 8th grade students is called iReady. And the slide here shows kind of just what iReady is. It's a research-based, it is adaptive, it's an assessment and an instructional tool. It identifies students' strengths and weaknesses and gives them an individualized pathway that is meant to fill in any gaps that students need and also enrich students as well. So these are the assessment windows for the year. We took our beginning baseline during September and October. We are due to take the mid-year assessments when we return. However, of course, we know that some students will still take their assessment for the middle of the year assessment at home, as we did the first time. And then we have an end of the year assessment in May. iReady shows the data in tiers. And so as we show the data on the next slide, you'll see these tiers. The green tier is tier 1, and it shows that students are on or above grade level. Tier 2 or yellow is students that are 1 grade level below, and students in the red are 2 or more grade levels below. So our district's reading data is as follows. We are showing that 49% of our students are at risk or in tier 3, 32% in tier 2, and 19% in tier 1. The next visual shows in which areas of reading are the students' strengths and weaknesses. There is phonological awareness, phonics, high-frequency words, vocab, comprehension, and informational text. And these colors just show you kind of where students fall. Some of our strengths are in phonological awareness, that's the hearing of sounds, phonics, and high-frequency words. We are doing some additional work around the comprehension pieces, the vocab, and the informational text. The next set of data shows the breakdown by grade levels. So as you see, there is kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, and I'll leave it there for a little bit. Now, I do want to state that these assessments were given in a virtual setting, so you might notice that the kindergarten bar has lots of green, and we might assume that they may have gotten a little bit of support, but the system accounts for that and allows for teachers to do some additional assessments, not kind of like just not formal ones, so that they kind of know where the student is and can put them on the appropriate pathway to help them out. After doing some observations, some of the strength then in 2nd grade and in 3rd, as the test changes, you'll see where student strength and areas of need arise. This data was for reading, and then we also have the data for math. As I looked historically at other data pieces like iLearn and iStep, it looks like, math has been an area of strength for Gary's students, and this is shown about the same this time, where reading and math are kind of similar. And again, you see the tiers. You see the placement by domains. For math are numbers and operations, algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement and data, and geometry. For math, the skills are they're similar, is what it shows. So there are some overarching needs. Probably numbers and operations are an area that will strengthen these others. number sense is involved in the numbers and operations. And again, by grade level, if we look at the math data, we see kindergarten with similar scores to the other grades as well. And these scores reflect about what we saw with iLearn and iStep looking at 2018. 2019, of course, was the same as 2018 because there weren't any assessments this year. We looked at the last year's data. And then the goals that we have for iReady is that we increase the number of students by 5% who are scoring in the green or the at or above grade level by June, and that 50% of our students will show that they have met or exceeded their individual growth. So iReady is, like I stated before, it is individualized, so each student receives a growth target, and we are looking to have at least half of our students, and generally more than those, but at least half meet or exceed their individual growth targets for reading and for math. Our students in 9th and 10th grade also took a formative assessment. It's Exact Path through Edmentum. This assessment is also adaptive. It is diagnostic. The results of this test are a little bit different. They look at, these are the assessment windows are about the same as for iReady. But Exact Path looks at quartiles or national percentiles. And so the scores are a little bit different. A 0 to 24th percentile is below average, 24th to 49th, as you see here. And so as we look at our data for those grades, this is our math data for the first diagnostic. This is the percent of students falling in these percentile areas. And so we are looking to improve on lowering the number of students in that lowest percentile for math. It gives you the breakdown of the percentages here. And this report doesn't give you grade level, it's just kind of everything all together. And again, for reading, reading and math at 9th and 10th almost mirror one another. We have 39% scoring in that lower percentile and a few more in the higher one, the 75 to 99%. So our goals for the high school is that we reduce the number of students in the lowest percentile by 5%, so to mirror the goals for iReady. Some other things in curriculum. I'll stop share, I think, if I can. Is that we have formed a curriculum committee, and the team has met, I believe, now 3 times. We are working on some K-12 lessons that are around STEM and focus on multicultural education. So we are working with the Gary Historical Society and also the STEM aviation that is in Gary. We're working with that company as well as our instructional, we have some instructional coaches in the district and some teachers all creating lesson plans that are tailored to our students around those topics. Additionally, we have school advisory committees that have met. Those advisory committees look at different things that the school, maybe the parents, the teachers, even the students are seeing as areas to discuss. They work together to solve problems and come up with activities to support our students' learning. I believe that is all. Dr. McNulty talked about the Title I update. We do have some professional development happening, but I believe that those are all the curriculum updates that I have.
Great, thank you, Ms. Bradley. We'll come back around for Q&A. So
okay.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ricardo Seppin here to provide a update on the benchmark dashboard. Yes.
Yep. And Ricardo, you should be presenter now too, so you can share your screen.
All right.
There you go.
Should we share? Can you see it?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. All right. So essentially, the way our dashboard works is we have 2 tabs per pillar. So academics will have 2 tabs. Engagement will have 2. Operations will have 2, and fiscal will have 2. For today, I'm only going to go through the items that we have the data so far to update. Some of the benchmarks are going to be due sometime in the future. So in the academics tab, let me start with that one pillar. We only have data to update one of the benchmark, which is number 18. It's related to the Career Center. Our measure or our benchmark was to increase enrollment by 5% prior to compared to 1920 school year. And then in the 2019-20 school year, we had 157 students enrolled. The fall count in 2020 was 198, so that was an increase of about 26%. So we met that benchmark. That is the only one that I have an update for academics. The other ones will update as the data comes in. Most of them are testing data that we just don't have. Tests have not been administered. We don't have the data yet. For the visual side of the academics dashboard, simply it's a graph that shows the difference. And just to make it clear, this dashboard has been linked to our website. So anyone can go on the website and actually download the data and see where we stand. All right, for the engagement dashboard, we have quite a few more updates on this one. The first benchmark is related to this dashboard actually. Was it created? Yes. Timely updated. We have a yes so far. Presented in December. After today, there will be a yes. Says pending here because we're still pending the March presentation and the June 2021 presentation. Once we have a yes, that will be automatically switched to Met. Second one of the engagement benchmark is the frequently asked questions document. That document has been created, has been publicly distributed, has been updated in October, November, and now in December. Okay. The other updates, as I said, are TBD, to be determined, future updates all the way through July of next year. The third one for engagement is related to creating standing committees. So the committees have been created. Technology committee has been created. Food services committee has been created. And curriculum committee has been created. So far, they met once before September 30th. Each committee met once. But the future meetings, the second and third meeting, have not occurred yet, and we'll update the dashboard when those take place. The fourth engagement benchmark is advisory committees. We needed to create one for each school. Those have been created. They each met once before October 31st. But again, the next meeting will take place sometime in the future, and we'll update the dashboard when that takes place. The last benchmark for the engagement committee will take place in the future once we get the data for 2021 school year. The visual impact is just simply, it will be a check mark whenever the benchmark has been met. The exclamation mark indicates that it is TBD. The data is not available yet, and then X indicates that we did not perform the activity, which we have done so far. Operations. So the first benchmark related to operations is technology platform implementation. It was implemented in the 2021 school year, one-to-one implementation. In-person and remote instruction in every classroom. That's a yes, so far so good. Training help. Each trainer, we needed to provide 4 training classes to parents. Those 4 have been provided, and we also needed to establish a 24-hour helpline that has been established as well. The next one on the benchmark is to be able to, for the student to access remotely instruction and for the school year and the teachers. That is a yes for at least 90%. We are able to track network connectivity. We have reporting capabilities, and the preliminary report to DUAB was submitted in December. The other benchmark related to this one are due in the future, March 31st through and then all the way through July of next year. Training for security officers. The first one was de-escalation training for employees who were employed as of September 1st, 2020. Those trainings were conducted. Also, the training for employees who were employed after September 1st, conducted within 60 days, those were conducted. The remaining tasks here are to be determined in the future. All right, so the next one down here, those are all future updates. Next one here is development of the update plan of the control document for the improvement fund. We have developed the document, and we have updated the document as of October 2020. Again, the other updates are due in the future, January through July of next year. And the visual tag simply puts a check mark whenever the activity has been performed, exclamation mark for future updates, and X for activities that we did not perform. The fiscal pillar, the dashboard here, the only one there's two items that we needed to update, we had data to update currently. One was the increase in overall enrollment for the school district. Target was 5% from the 1920 school year to the 2021 school year. Although we had an increase of 6%, unfortunately that was not over our 5%. But I do want to say that after 10 years of steadily decrease, even as more increases, feels good. All right, the last one here is actually the same as the academics update. It is 5%. We tried to get 5% increase for the Career Center. We hit about 26% on that. Visual side of it looks the same. Graphs, whenever they're related to numbers and check marks, exclamation marks, or X whenever we have something that's a yes or no response. But let's do have any questions, and I'm done here.
Thank you, Ricardo. We'll come back around with Q&A at the end. Appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Up next, we have an update on the path forward, and I'm not exactly sure who from the team is presenting this one, but I'll turn it to Dr. McNulty and let her quarterback it from there.
Okay. The path forward is being presented, I believe, by Eric.
Sure. I'm happy to do it. Courtney, do you have, I don't have I'll just let you pull it up if you can.
Give me a second to get to it.
I've got it. If it's easier to give me control, whatever's easiest for you.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and give you control if you have it already up.
Yeah.
All right, you should be presenter now.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
How's that?
Getting there.
There we go.
There it is.
All right, sorry about that. All right, the path forward. So Ricardo just presented the dashboard, which is a comprehensive look at all of the benchmarks applicable to Gary Community Schools for the 2020-2021 school year. The path forward is a supplemental in addition to that dashboard. And it's more external facing, more intended to push into the public as much as we can, the Gary community. It's on the website, it's in social media. When Dr. McNulty does a manager forum, she'll bring copies with her and make those available. This is a subset of the information included in that dashboard. And rather than, as you saw, when Ricardo presented, there's lots of information that's in the future. So the path forward is meant to capture data that's readily available at that moment in time. And it's the same 4 pillars, so academics, engagement, operations, and fiscal, and data is pulled out that is readily available or timely for that particular quarterly update. So it's 2 pages. A couple of things to note before we look at some of the information on the path forward. This process started back in July after the outreach meetings about the 2020-21 school year and the 21-22 school year. We did outreach to the community and to say, here are the benchmarks that we think are important, but we want to hear from you. So what is important for you to hear in a status report? And we got over 80 responses, and some of those responses were things that we had already identified and included, and then some of those responses we hadn't thought of and are included in this and future path forward updates. And then the other piece is we put 3 formats together. So we knew it'd be a short document front and back, but we asked community members, what's the best format? How would you want to receive this information? And based on that feedback is where we landed on this format. So there's the first pillar is academics. You can see a very small sliver of the iReady that Kim presented earlier in this meeting, as well as several points of progress related to academics. The next section down is engagement. As Ricardo said, here's some of the pieces that have been achieved because they're timely, and it reports out to the community where we're at on that. Flip it over to the back. It's a fiscal, talks about enrollment, talks about teacher raises as a result of passing the referendum and the impact of that. And then operations, a lot of IT around distribution of Chromebooks, connectivity, and training sessions. And then just a little bit more, the additional information is available here on the website. People can go and download this as a copy, have one for themselves. A way to ask questions about the data is on here as well. This is the first one. It'll come out quarterly. It'll come out in conjunction with the comprehensive dashboard. It's not intended to replace the dashboard, but to supplement it and make it, as you saw, the dashboard is very comprehensive, make it a little bit more graphical and family friendly. And that is the path forward.
Great, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And we'll come back around to Q&A on this as well. The next item of business that we have is the School Improvement Fund Plan Update, and we do have Rob Tanner with us again. Rob?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. The update for the School Improvement Plan from last month, we have completed the HVAC design and all the specifications. It has went out for bid. Now that happened actually at the beginning of December, so this report was based on November. And those bids are due back by January the 8th. The digital access control, which I believe was funded out of some other funds besides 1065, but we had it up in our plan. So I wanted just to throw that those are about 90% complete as of the end of November. If they're not complete now, they're probably even closer. What I mean by digital access, I'm talking about card swipes when you go in the door, where we can have, instead of having keys to get in the door, what we now have digital access cards that can be turned on or off or limited by what times of the day they can be entered, those type of things. The beverage playground is complete. As I said, I think last month they were able to get it in with some warm weather, so that was excellent. It is beautiful. They are installing a fence around it. The poles are up, so it's not complete yet, but it's about halfway done. The Westside Leadership Academy track, the old track was removed, the subsurface was repaired, and the new asphalt track was put down. And that has all been completed. The spring weather availability, they will do the final sealing and top coat and stripe it. And I believe that the plan is to be able to have track meets there this spring. And then as far as the expenditures, the only expenditure was for the completion of the playground. And right now, or as at the end of the month, the balance was just a little over $2 million, $2,065,122.82. And that is all the changes.
Great, thank you, Rob. We will come back around on Q&A, and we will also review the claims docket as we come back to that. I do want to jump ahead. I'm going to grab the ninth item on the agenda today, the connectivity review, and ask that we take that now as it sort of relates to this set of items. So we have with us Daryl Riddell from Gary Community Schools. He's the IT director. Mr. Riddell.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Can.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. Great things are happening in the Gary Community Schools regarding IT and a number of different things. I'm happy to report that we use a company called ENA. ENA has been with us for a long time, which stands for Education Networks of America. And within the Gary School Corporation, we're running at 99.672% of connectivity on the grounds, on all of our facilities. We generated that report on monitoring our systems throughout the district on a daily basis. I can generate reports whenever I need to, but I'm happy to report we are well connected. So there's a number of things that we're doing in the community. Dr. McNulty, just to pick up where she left off about WAN aggregation, basically what we're doing, and she was right, we're taking Williams as our main network facility to where that's where our network comes in at. We are creating what we call a WAN aggregation, and we're creating that at Glen Park. We're currently building that out with electricians of that nature. We'll begin to do the January to build out with electricians. Starting in January, so we will have that hopefully within
hold on for a moment. He's having difficulty, and I'm going to let her know the time is on.
Okay, actually, Justin, I am here, but I'm on DUAB timer right now. What are you seeing on your side?
If you could just mute, I think there was a lot of feedback noise coming through.
Okay, yep. All right.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Yes, no problem. Just to finish up, when we look at the WAN aggregation for what we currently have, like Dr. McNulty indicated, if Williams would go down, right, currently we don't have anything to really move the network in another direction. Once we get the WAN aggregation completed, which I'm shooting for sometime in March, if not before that, we have electricians coming in because we have to build it out in Glen Park to make sure that we have adequate time and make sure we're doing it right. So that should be completed by 1st of March, sometime in March, I would say. But outside of that, once that's up and going, if Williams go down, Glen Park could pick it up, and the district will continue on with their having internet connectivity. Also, we've increased our internet access from 2 gigabytes to 4 with anticipation with students coming back to school using their Chromebooks. So we are trying to be proactive instead of reactive when we deal with our technology and our students. So from a technology standpoint, I'm really happy with the progression that we're on.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that. Since you're the last one, I'm gonna give you a question. On the connectivity side, do we have a sense of how student connectivity has been with the hotspots through T-Mobile and what that looks like? Do we have any visibility into that yet?
Yes, I did ask them for a report on that. As well, you know, they're their own entity, so I'm still waiting on that report. That would be, I will make sure that would be included in my next report moving forward, as well as the connectivity with our ENA as well as the hotspots. But overall, do we have glitches here and there? We have our cases, but overall, students have been able to get on the internet consistently.
Is it fair to say that the vast majority of students are not having trouble with it, that they're able to connect through that?
That's true. The vast majority do not. They have adequate internet access, no problem. And then if there is an issue with the hotspot, we have just gave out an additional 25 per school hotspots in case one might be damaged or could be any type of issue that we're covering for. So if a student needs a new hotspot for whatever reason, they can come into the school currently, exchange it, and then we give the damaged one or the one that's not working back to T-Mobile, and they will replace them. So that's the chain of how things are working. But overall, the students are easily able to get onto the internet.
Great.
The hotspots. Thank you for the question.
Well, with that, that concludes the updates from Gary Community Schools and the management team. Do members of the board have questions related to any of the items we've covered thus far?
I wouldn't mind asking Ms. Bradley a question. Thank you. Ms. Bradley, this is Paul Joyce. I know when working with the iReady testing, I think it shows us what needs to improve in the various different categories that you've identified. What are you guys doing at the school to analyze what the root causes of the problem are for the children and why they're not retaining the information being taught that might lead or help better understand how the kids learn so they can retain this information? So we might see some gains in the areas that's been identified as being weak.
Yes, we have looked at those things, and what I'll say is that some of the things that we've identified is that our students come to us historically. Are you able to hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Historically behind, so they may enter our buildings at kindergarten or even preschool at somewhat of a deficit. And so what we've identified as things that need to happen is that we are trying to help teachers focus more on individual instruction, so on differentiated instruction, so that in a classroom for today, especially in an urban setting, teaching to the whole is not the only way that's going to get our students to meet their individual needs, but also breaking the students into smaller groups to get at exactly what their deficits are and to fill in those gaps. That's one of the things that iReady, that instructional piece, helps us do. So the assessment piece says, okay, this kid is operating at a first grade level, but they're a third grader. That information is nice to have, but if you don't have anything, to help us what to do about that. So the instructional piece of iReady allows the student then to work on those deficits that create the issue. So why is it? Is it that the student cannot hear sounds or hasn't been taught how to use that in order to decode words, and then there's some comprehension and decoding kind of go together? And so those are things that we are focusing on. So the teachers have been through a couple of sessions looking at their iReady data. And then once you look at the iReady data, the what to do about it is the next step. And then sometimes that informs, well, oftentimes that informs the instruction. So the instruction needs to change in order to meet our student need. And so the data disaggregation allows us to do that. So the data is telling us that phonics and phonemic awareness is not really an area that we have to focus on a whole lot. It might be comprehension. And for certain grade levels, it might be that that the fiction is pretty solid, but maybe the nonfiction is not. So just having teachers respond to the data through their lessons is where we're working. And teachers have been very receptive to that, even in the setting that we're in. So we've got several training sessions with the company. Our principals are looking at the data, monitoring where we are, and helping teachers to come up with a plan of action. We also are using some of our title dollars for smaller group kind of like what you would say, like after school tutoring. However, they may happen during our asynchronous time. So, and then when school opens again, we'll be a lot more focused on that after school tutoring, because some of our students will need some additional time. You know, in a virtual setting, you don't want to have students sitting in front of a laptop for hours and hours. So taking that into account too.
And if I could just piggyback real quick on something, one of the other things that we've implemented is grade level teaming, so that all the third graders are talking, teachers are talking with one another about what best practices are in third grade. Fourth grade level teachers are talking with one another. And one of the things that we've noticed is there is not a good scope and sequence between our elementary and our middle school curriculum. There's a gap there. And so we think also that that's where some of the disconnect is with our curriculum and some of the learning. So those teachers in elementary need to be passing that baton to the middle school, and they need to know exactly where those kids have left off before they go to middle school, and that's new. So that's something that we're working on.
I would definitely agree. The curriculum piece was something that is new. The focus on standards-based curriculum, I think, is new too, so that the curriculum doesn't drive necessarily what you teach. It's not just about the stories. What are the standards that we need to focus on? And of course, the PLCs have been helping, like Dr. Melty has said, yes.
Yeah, I think it was on the reading when you could definitely see more of an inverted curve as it went from the elementary through the middle years and then back higher in the high school years. And you definitely don't want to lose what you're gaining at the most, opportune time for a child to learn, which is their grade school ages. So you want to make sure they retain that as it goes forward. So I think it's good you're working on that.
And provide that solid foundation too at the beginning, because that allows you to have that retention over time.
Right. I agree. Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit to what you're doing to equip the teachers to be able to harness this data and utilize it? What are the expectations for teachers? What's the support for that?
So we have several layers of expertise. We have instructional coaches, one at the elementary level who came on a couple months ago, but she's very versed in iReady. So she provides support individually if need be, but also with the principals so that they understand, because as you know, iReady is new for us this year. So just kind of understanding what iReady does. It's a little bit different from the exact path that we had before, in that it is individual to the student. And so the focus is a little more on that differentiation so that the student gets what they need. And so we have that layer. Teachers also have been trained by the consultants through the company. And then the principals provide support. And if they need support, our curriculum team supports them as well. So we've been looking at the data at the school level, but also on the student level. So how often does the student get on their path? And is that informing their growth in those pathways? And so making certain that the students are on the pathways, because that's how they're going to do better. There is a expectation that students are on for 45 minutes a week. And so we're building those into the schedule. And then also teachers have a way of looking specifically at each student and being able to respond via lessons that come through the system for those students who might be struggling in certain areas.
Also wrapped or started this school year Late Start Wednesday for our district, so that we can give our teachers more support on all these new initiatives, because we know it's a lot. So, and we don't want our teachers to feel overwhelmed or to feel uncomfortable because they don't know something. So as Kim can tell you, I'm not a Google gal. So they've been training me all year on how to use the Google platforms and so forth. And we don't want people to feel uncomfortable on if you don't know something, just tell us and we'll get you those supports wrapped around you. So some of the things we've been working with them on is data, how to read the data. What exactly does that data show you for your group of 20 kids in your classroom? Behavior management in your classroom, instructional technology, because we need to get people up to speed on that everywhere. And also getting lots of teachers micro-credentialing this year. I think we had about 80 teachers so far that have received micro-credentialing, and we'll continue to apply for those grants. But we are definitely wrapping lots of PD around our teachers, and if they ask us for anything, we're trying to make sure that they have it afforded to them.
Thank you.
If I could ask a question, when you know that the student is already coming in at a disadvantage, are there supplemental materials that they have access to help them? The teacher can't always be there, but are there materials that you can provide to the student as a supplement for themselves to try to come up to speed?
Yeah, we have several intervention pieces, and we're acquiring some new ones this actually school year too, that focus on those areas that students historically come in with deficits. And we're also working to bolster and strengthen our Tier 1 instruction. Sometimes the issue is just that if that Tier 1 is really strong and gets at what those needs are, you can kind of fix some of those deficits early on. That kindergarten, first grade, preschool level, those are the focus for building those strong foundations, because when that happens, then our students are better for it later.
You said you had some questions.
Chairman, and I need you to bear with me because you had all of this together, so I got a whole stream of questions to ask.
All right.
Let me ask some generic ones or some general ones first. I want to first bring a concern that was posed to me a number of times in the community. Dr. McNulty mentioned the Referendum Ambassadors Committee. The community is concerned with the school corporation through MGT selecting those persons. They want the person selected through the community and not by the school corporation. If this is to be a committee, an oversight committee from the community, they feel that for someone or a group that is being inspected and watched, and I use that loosely, watched, that term, that they should not choose the people who are going to do that. And so I don't know what the answer is, but I know the community does not want the school corporation or MGT to pick this committee. This has been shared to me by the ministers as well as citizens in the community. And I'm not sure if Reverend Jackson called you, Dr. McNulty. He said he was. I told him he should. I don't know if he has expressed his concern. One of the thoughts was that maybe the persons who were on the referendum committee who were not a part of the school corporation, not employees, that they might select them, and or some outside entity needs to do this versus the Gary Community School Corporation or MGT selecting the people. So I want to share that and go on record with that because I was asked to do that. And then I want to just thank Wes Bennett and Paul Joyce for being so pro, Gary, and so supportive of the process. This community has mentioned your names to me several times, those people who have followed the work of DUAB. They really appreciate what they see as genuine interest in the Gary Community School Corporation. My next, you're welcome. The community appreciates you, okay? And I do as well. A general question for Dr. McNulty is the total dollars that have been generated from the building sales. Is that information available, or do you know what it is at this point? And
yes.
The second question.
I posted that on our website last week.
Okay. Do you know what it is offhand?
I don't, but I can look it up after this meeting and send it to you. But it's all the dollar amounts of how much the buildings were sold for are posted on our website, the name of the building and the dollar amount.
And how will these funds be used? In what account will they be placed?
I'll let Nicole speak to that.
The funds are being placed into our operations account in the sale of real property. That's where they're being booked to. Okay.
Question for Dr. McNulty, a general question. You reported that 56% of parents or 53% of the parents, I don't know exactly the figure, I didn't write it down, but over half of them plan to stay at home come January 19th. How does this impact the human resources that you need for the school corporation to be able to educate half of them face-to-face and half of them by e-learning? And what fiscal impact is there?
So it shouldn't affect our human resource needs because the teachers will continue to teach just as they have been. So if I'm the teacher, I'm going to come into the building. I'm going to teach those students who come in person. I'm going to turn my camera on, and those who are still staying home remotely will still see my lesson just as they have been.
Okay. Have the teachers been trained to make sure when they're dealing with engagement and questioning the number of students they call out, that they're calling on students who are at home as frequently as they're calling on students who are in the classroom?
Yeah, we've been working with the teachers a lot on that, and actually we have a meeting tomorrow with all of our teachers, and then we have several YouTube videos that we are planning on sharing with them tomorrow on many examples of that, and then we have professional development set up for them right after the holiday break to fill in any gaps between now and January 19th.
Okay. I wanted to deal with the goal. I was wondering if Ms. Bradley would share with me what the goal is again for academics. It was 5%, but was it 5% of all students, and whether it's improved and where? Can you share that goal with me again?
Yes, I will. Let me find it exactly. There were two goals for iReady. One was around the reduction of students or the increase of students that fall into the green, so at or above grade level by 5%. That's all students. And then the other goal was around 50% of our students meeting their personal growth goals.
Okay. And I want to just thank Mrs. Bradley for sharing some of this data with me in advance. I appreciate it. Her doing that. And I'm not trying to sideswipe you, Ms. Bradley. Ms. Bradley is a former student of mine, so I want her to succeed. So I definitely won't be throwing any barbs at her.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Okay. But when I look at this 5%, I look at the numbers where you say, for example, at Bailey Middle School, 409 students. Of those 409 students, 282, 69% of them are in the at-risk category. And we only have 6%, which will be about 24 students that are at Tier 1. If we're talking about 5%, we're talking about 20 students making progress. I think that is much too low as to be a benchmark for a whole year, that 20 students going to make the growth. And I don't know who set up these. I know, Courtney, you worked with MGT on this, but I think those figures are way too low. Way too low if you say in a whole year only 20 students are going to get where they're supposed to get.
So the 5% is around, so if you have that many students who are already, look at the yellow, 1 year behind,
yes.
I'm just being for real. During a pandemic and with everything that's going on, and I'm not saying that we only want 20 students, but I'm not certain that having them move a full grade level, that's a lot of movement, you know, and 50, what we more want to focus on is the growth. So all of them should grow over the year, and we're looking at having them all grow. Though what happens is I might grow to a whole new grade level, and I wouldn't get in the green, but I made a lot of progress over the year.
Yeah, I understand growth, and I think we ought to look at growth as well. But I'm still saying that 20 students joining the maybe the 24 students is a low benchmark for a whole year. And I understand with this pandemic, it's a new world, totally new world.
Yeah.
But I just think that number ought to be increased. And I don't have the power to do that. I'm just expressing my concern about that. And Kim, Ms. Bradley, I really am not trying to sideswipe you, but I think it also might help for, if this is what we're posting for people who don't have any understanding of graphs and grids and all, graphs and things of this nature, that you might want to put some raw numbers in there. In the red, like 282 would be 69%, 282 students, because everybody is not that efficient, you know. And I'm just saying the average citizen, I think, will look at this and give up because they won't understand it.
Okay.
If we can make it as citizen and friendly as we can. I had another question. The question is, I think you mentioned, and when we had our discussion, I wasn't aware of this and didn't even think about it. I was just looking at what you had shared with me. Is there a base that starts with the first testing in, did you say that or where students started at, either from last academic year or in September? Is that the base?
Yes, the assessment that they took in September is the baseline, because this is a new assessment for us, so we don't have, historical data on iReady.
Okay, but you do have growth from the base to the first testing, right?
No, not yet. Our next test will be January. So in our next meeting, hopefully, depending on when it is, we may be able to share that data, if not the third for sure.
So you did not test in September?
We tested in September, but we haven't tested since then.
Okay. So this is September testing?
Right.
Okay. And you'll be testing again, in January?
Yes. Okay.
What are you using as a base? Are you using their performance at the end of the 19-20 year, or what? Are you not using the base at all? This becomes your base, right?
Right.
Okay. I'm just saying that as you go ahead and develop this information to the community, we need to show the growth in there too somewhere, and I'm sure you're aware of that. And I just wanted to make that observation. And then I wanted to make some general comments to I think it was I don't know if it was Wes or Mr. Joyce that asked about addressing the needs of these students. Who asked that question, Mr. Chairman? Was it?
That was me. It was Paul.
It was Paul. Okay. Let me just indicate, and I don't know how you can successfully do this with minority children and children of poverty, But we must go back and look at their learning styles. And the research shows that African American children, Hispanic children, and children of poverty often are musical learners, they're motor learners, and then next they're visual learners. And with that being in mind, I just want to suggest some things. I'm not trying to tell y'all how to do your job, but I'm just sharing with you what worked for me at Williams School. My first school I was principal of, they were high achievers. It was the Miller section of Gary. That's where the Jewish people lived, and so those kids came to school many times reading. They came to school knowing how to do math. They were the kids that taught me how to use the first computers. I didn't know anything about computers. I had a fourth grade student that taught me how to use my computer in my office, and they were bright children. They were children of wealth, okay, because at that time Gary was prospering. And we had the downtown that everybody shopped in. The whole county came to Gary to shop. And the Jewish people who lived in Gary owned all of downtown, owned all the businesses pretty much in Gary, Indiana. So they were bright children. But I left there and I went to Williams School, and it was a different scenario, a different story. I went to Williams School, and Gary was at its heyday at that time. We had 28 elementary schools. And of those 28 elementary schools, Williams School was ranked 23rd in math, and it was ranked 17th in reading. 7 years later, we were ranked 7th in both areas. And we were above the state performance and so forth. But when we came to comparing ourselves internally within the school district, that's where Williams School was. Now, I'm not here trying to pat myself on the back. I'm not trying to get any accolades, but I'm sharing with you some things that I think will work. One of the things, because these children are musical learners, if you notice that they can learn a whole half hour of rap and can't memorize the spelling words, okay? The difference is that they are musical learners. And one of the things that we did was to put information to music. We were being tested in science, and so we took a song that was being taught in the music class. She'll be coming around the mountain, and we said, "Oh, a lever is a simple machine. Oh, a lever is a simple machine. It helps us to lift things. It helps us to move things. Oh, a lever is a simple machine. Oh, a pulley is a simple machine." So we put stuff to music, and the children performed better for us. We put all our math facts to music. We did stuff like hand jive to teach the facts. We found that the children don't know by heart their math facts. And I imagine that's the same situation today. And so we had these kinds of things. 1 times 1 is 1. 6 times 7 is 43. We did those kinds of things. They can do that on e-learning. You got to get to the root of the problem if you're going to solve it, because many of these kids don't know their math facts. If they're finger counters, that's going to slow them down. They're not going to perform as well. So I'm just suggesting some of those kinds of things for you, for them, and that they must continue to use visual learning, even with e-learning, to show them what they need to do and how the finished product ought to be. I'm just sharing that with you because it worked for us. Now, my next point that I want to go to is with the path forward. In that legend, in there's no legend to explain parents or a non-educator or what those tiers are about. There's no numbers in there, no raw numbers in there as well for a person who doesn't understand percentages. The average citizen doesn't understand percentages to the degree they ought to. If you go into a grocery store and tell them 75%, they got to get a computer to compute it. They don't even understand what 90% means, that you're only paying 10%. I see that all the time in stores when they having sales, that they haven't marked the actual amount on there. I'm just trying to tell you what this community is about. And I'm just saying to you that we've got to get more information on those path forwards, these documents that we're posting, because if they don't understand them, they're not going to give any attention. So you don't have any more transparency. You got academic exercise, but there's no transparency. And so I'm just sharing with these. And then I think we also have to have the percentage of the test for the domains. For the domains that you're talking about, we need more information there, because this community, and I'm not trying to beat up on my community. I'm just saying that my knowledge of my community, I think we got to give them more. If it's for the people who really want to know. And then I wanted to get to, if I may, at this point, get to some specific items that's in the monthly report from Dr. McNulty. So if I could get to her attention on page 2, Dr. McNulty. I'm getting phone calls from teachers and from parents asking, why are you moving to January? Why are you trying to get back into the schools on January 19th? Is it because of the quality of the e-learning, or what's the reason behind it?
Well, we all know that we want kids back in front of their teachers. That's the best place for them to be. And so I've been very careful in trying to watch the numbers and watch how things are progressing. But we also know that our kids need to be back in front of their teachers. I also have been meeting with the Lake County superintendents weekly. There's about 26 of us, and we all talk through these numbers. We talk through what's happening and through our plan of action. We've also been consulting with the Lake County Health Department and the Gary Health Department. And all that being said, we've decided collectively to try to reopen our schools in January. Now, some are coming back January 7th, but most are coming back January 19th, again, to try to get through that Christmas break where people might not be socially distancing and give us that couple weeks time for the numbers to come back down. So that's why we chose January 19th.
Yeah, Dr. McNulty, I agree with you totally. I think what I suggest to you is that there's some education in this community that needs to occur, because the parents who are concerned, the teachers who are concerned, feel like you've got some side reason, some unscrupulous reason to do this. Your rationale is solid and it's valid. And I just think that you need to communicate this with the community, because all the people who are calling and have concerns, they need to understand that face-to-face is going to give us greater results. Okay. Then on page 2, you say school advisory committees have been formed and beginning meetings have happened. I can confirm that, because I'm on one school's advisory board, and we've had 2 meetings already. My question is, and I'm pleased with the principal that I'm working with in the school that I am working with. Has any template been given to the principals that may not know how to do an advisory board?
Yes, we've given them a template. We've also talked through them about how that meeting should evolve. Again, this is a learning process for our principals because they've never done it before, but definitely they've been given a template, an agenda, and we've talked through them what the process should look like and how it should evolve as it goes throughout the year. Okay, then under the formative assessment, you have a bullet say we are now combining through the data with teachers. No, we're now combing through the data with teachers. I got on reading glasses and still can't see. This print is so small for me. I'm sorry. We're now combing through the data with teachers to identify areas of weaknesses and strengths. Have the district identified overall weaknesses for the district, and have the schools identified building weaknesses to target on? Yep, I'm going to turn that one over to Ms. Bradley, but yes. Okay.
They have at the school levels, and we have looked at the data at the district level as well. Several of our elementaries chart the data. They do so electronically with their staff, and I think I know that Williams has like a data wall that is physical, and also our instructional coaches are also looking at that data in its entirety across the grade levels as well.
Okay. Let me get to the pages that I have folded. And believe me, Mr. Chairman, I'm winding it down. I know that I'm like a long.
Appreciate that. We got a lot on the agenda today.
Okay. On page 12. That's going back to the path forward. I've already talked about that. I'll skip over that we need more information on there. This might be a moot question now. On page 13, you talk about the increase in enrollment, but you say that you didn't reach your goal of 5%. But my question was, are you doing any breakdown between high school and elementary schools to show where you may have to have a focus on recruiting for the school district?
Yes. We had our most growth at the high school level. We need more growth at the elementary, but that's during the pandemic, a lot more younger kids stayed home and didn't enroll this school year, and I think that's statewide because of the pandemic. So, but certainly we have that information grade by grade, and so we know where we need to focus our efforts going forward.
Well, the pandemic would not determine where they enrolled. It would determine what method of instruction they have chosen to be face-to-face. So that.
Yeah, we have kids across the state, though, have just stayed home and have not enrolled in any school district.
Okay. Is the state making any effort to deal with this? No?
I do know that's an issue that the Department of Education is focused on. But I think from what I've heard anecdotally from our education policy folks here in the administration is that there's a pretty consistent statewide pattern where we see younger students, particularly, in the kindergarten ages where they can delay that enrollment. Many have chosen to do so. So it's not an uncommon phenomenon.
Okay. On page 39, under the operating deficit and debt, you're talking about we're at $6 million. I think we shared that so often during the referendum battle that we had in this community. What is being done to reduce that $6 million this academic year so that we have growth towards the reduction of debt?
Yeah, I'll take a stab, Dr. Smith, Eric Parrish here, and then Nicole Worthington can add anything that I may have missed. The first and foremost was the increased enrollment, which we did, albeit very slightly. But compared to years past, the delta between students lost and gaining 6 students is huge, and that contributes to closing that deficit. And we'll recast that deficit at the end of this calendar year and report out in February 2021 where we ended the year. The other thing is what we've been doing all along and being very mindful of what we spend money on and how we spend it. There's many expenses that we have to incur, but how we do that, we can control. And we've been very mindful of minimizing excess spending to the greatest extent possible. Nicole, anything you want to add to that?
Sure. I think the only thing I'd like to add is that, with the 1065 money, we're really looking at our schools and ways that we can increase efficiency and utilities and operational expenses, as well as kind of taking a deep dive into those expenses and areas that we can cut going forward. I think the biggest thing is that we're building some really great cash flow models and projections that really help us, understand where we are and where we can go in the future with those expenses as well.
Effort. We talked about that if we pass that referendum, that we will get out of this financial situation that we are. What are the plans to use those dollars to shift the burden from the regular operational fund into, since you got a separate line item for the referendum funding, that will reduce this debt?
I'll go ahead and take that one too. I think the biggest thing is, this year we're still facing some budget challenges because we did have such a deficit in that operations fund. So we're waiting on our final 2021 budget numbers. We will have some tight operations for this next year, so it's going to be key that we continue to control expenses for the next year so we can see that shift between the operating fund and the operating referendum fund balances.
In the second paragraph of this portion of the report, it talks about short-term debt. Are these local debts? When you say short-term debts?
Yeah, so let me take that, Nicole, real quick. Accounts payable, the typical monthly cycle of operating any organization.
Okay, so they may not be local, it could be anything.
It could be anything. It could be plumbing vendors, school supplies, office supplies. This is your normal cycle of accounts payable.
Okay. On page 41.
Dr. Smith, those actually do get into a couple of the items we're going to talk about after this. If you want to save those questions, we'll come back to that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate your questions. Wes, I know you had a question or two.
Dr. McNulty, Ms. Bradley, thank you for the certainly thank you for the updates on both the curriculum and the assessment testing, and I had a similar and I'll move on from it, but I would challenge that 5% as well. Certainly like to see that, and I know we'd all like to see that higher, but I would certainly challenge you to maybe set that a little bit higher. But certainly congratulations on your audit from DOE and from the federal audit. Could you talk real briefly, just real quickly, Dr. McNulty, about your discussions with the city on the remaining buildings that are vacant? How's that going? Is there anything we should be aware of in that area?
Communication has been very open and positive with the city as far as the properties that have been sold. We are going to recircle back around. I'm still in the midst of closing on several of those buildings. I've been doing that fast and furiously. So we'll look at the 10 that are left, and then I'll probably meet with the city to see about, relisting those, rebidding those out again. But conversations have been very positive and productive with the city.
Okay, I'd like to see the numbers that you're going to provide, Dr. Smith, on the sales and so forth.
Okay.
When you get a chance. On page 13, the operations pillar of the path forward, the internet connectivity. Just want to make sure I'm clear on what I'm reading on that. Is that graph saying that 95% of the students are connected 95% of the time, or exactly what does 95% mean?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that in just a minute. Eric Parrish here. The benchmark in the dashboard is 95% of the time the internet will be available and connectivity will be at 95% for student access. And so this checks the box that it met or exceeded 95% connectivity by month.
And are we able to gauge, are we able to measure, are we able to tell if the child is, or the student is connected?
Yes, I'm going to let the expert take that. If Daryl, nod your head if that's you.
We can tell. However, we would need to be notified by we would need to be notified by the parent about the hotspot having an issue. We do have a help desk number that they do call if they do have issues with their hotspot, and we also have access to a help desk with T-Mobile if they have any type of outage or any type of issue with any type of connectivity.
Yeah, I saw you also.
The other way we're monitoring it, Mr. Bennett, is obviously our teachers need to see that the kids are logging in daily. And if they're not logging in consistently, then we start calling them and reaching out to find out what the problem is.
Are you measuring that in any way, Dr. McNulty, as to, who is not, what students or what families are not online or when they should be?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And I think my last question, might be for Rob. Any surprises or emergencies in the form of like breakdowns from operating equipment or building systems, anything like that that's knock on wood, certainly don't want those to happen, but anything so far early in this season?
Yeah, there's been several things. I mean, obviously, you don't know what you have sometimes behind a wall or under a roof until you start peeling back the layers. Yeah. The Bethune boiler is, we kind of got it together with chewing gum and duct tape, to be completely honest with you. We do have at least the plans that we won't replace it till after the heating season's over, since it's only got one boiler. But we do have in our, we're conscious that if it goes out, we're going to have to rent one until that time.
Isn't that
we don't want
to list?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But by the time we get it manufactured, I mean, it's just not going to be here.
Long lead time. Time on those. Yeah.
And it's getting worse, unfortunately. I think with, as manufacturers struggle with employment because of COVID issues and things.
I don't want to be in the weeds here, but any thought, Rob, about ordering that now?
We'll be doing that because we are speccing what boilers we want because we want to keep kind of a consistency through the building so that the staff at Gary, are only dealing with one, manufacturer's rep and things like that when it comes to working on these. We have talked about it. We just don't think that it's worth the trouble to the point where we can get one on pretty short notice to rent if we have to. Like I said, again, we're hoping that we can struggle our way through the season, but we have a plan if it isn't the case. And then on the roofs, we found multiple masonry problems. Matter of fact, I'll have pictures of some of that in my next update report. I just had a meeting today. We are about 90% done with the design on phase 1 for the roof, so that's going to be going out bid in early January. But yeah, we have some places where certain types of roof materials, especially in the past, shrink, and where they're attached to the coping around the building, it's actually so strong that when it shrinks, it pulls the blocks and the bricks off the wall. And so we've had several of those. We also have an issue at Beveridge Gym. It's leaking bad. We've tried to patch it just temporarily over and over again, and it's not working. So we're actually, I just got off a meeting today with the architects. They're going to put together real quick drawings for that, just that piece on Beveridge, because we are going to replace the entire roof, but I don't think that's until phase 3. So that we can go ahead and get 3 bids just on that one small portion, because we're scared we're going to end up losing the gym floor, and that's not going to be a cheap fix. So we may end up spending a little bit more money up front, but we're hoping we'll save some on the back end.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I had. Dr. Smith took my other 4 questions, so he beat me to the punch there. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions for the team?
I want to make a comment real quick.
Yeah,
I know we're running over. I had the opportunity to talk to the audit team who worked on the federal grant audit with your team, Paige, and just wanted to say the word they used was excited. They were so excited to see the progress that had been made there. in terms of your fiscal management of those federal programs. So just congratulations. Great job and keep it up. Yep.
Please, I was very happy to see that in the report this time page. So thank you very much for all of you for the work on that front. We do need to deal with the school improvement plan and the review of the claims docket. You all have received the claims docket. It was item number 5 in the packet that was sent to you. I would entertain a motion or questions if there are any.
Do you want the motion, Dustin?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I move that we approve the claims docket as presented.
I second.
Second?
I second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Joyce?
Yes.
Wes Bennett? Tracy Brown? Rebecca Kubacki? And Justin McAdam. 5-0.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Before we move on, I do just want to commend the team for the efforts towards transparency here today. I know that there is a lot of data to share, and we're learning more and more all the time. And I appreciate the willingness to share all of that data, whether it paints a favorable or an unfavorable picture, because I think at the end of the day, we're all better off when we have a clear picture of what's happening there on the ground and what's happening in the district. And certainly the community and the parents are going to benefit tremendously from that by being able to see how their school is doing for them. So thank you very much for that. With that, I would like to move to our next item of business. We do have just 2 items of business left. Hopefully we can move through them quickly. The first one is a consideration of the issuance of the tax anticipation warrants for Gary Community School Corporation. This is something we have done before and is a follow-up, as Paige mentioned in her remarks, to the teacher negotiations and the ability to be able to provide those teacher raises for this semester. So, Courtney, if you want to introduce this with more detail, that's fine, and we'll move forward.
Sure. Yes, this is fairly similar to what we did back in May of 2020, again, when we had authorized them to take out short-term tax anticipation warrants through the Indiana Bond Bank. That is the same idea here, again, going through the Indiana Bond Bank. This is just a short-term borrowing that would be repaid by the end of 2021. It is not something that, as you look at the overall debt picture for Gary Schools, it's not something that gets counted towards their overall debt load. Just with the way that warrants are typically handled, it basically is just an advance on property tax draws that will be occurring in June from the referendum fund. But this would allow the school corporation to start to have access to that money sooner. And as Dr. McNulty had mentioned, that will allow them to start those raises sooner rather than waiting until June and essentially waiting till next school year to start those teacher raises. And Nicole, I don't know if you have other comments you'd like to add.
No, I think that kind of covers it. I know in the spring our interest rate for the tax anticipation warrant was around 1%. I'm expecting kind of the same interest rate. They're going to market right now and bundling along with some other TAWs. So I'm expecting around a $44,000 interest rate. The price of the the amount of the tax anticipation warrant is $4,495,000. And again, that is to cover our teacher raises this year.
A clarification, and this is probably something Wes and Paul and Courtney could all attest to, but this is a fairly common practice for schools and local governments in dealing with the cash flow related to their property taxes.
I concur, Mr. Chairman. There's nothing wrong with this, and I would, at the appropriate time, move we approve Resolution 2020-3, approving the issuance of tax anticipation warrants by Gary Community School Corporation and authorizing related transaction documents.
Yeah, I will second that motion.
There's a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Yep. Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett, Tracy Brown, Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
and Justin McAdam. Okay, 5-0.
All right, thank you. Unanimous approval of that motion. The next item of business we have before us is a consideration of 2 performance incentives for Gary Schools Recovery LLC. These arise out of our contract with GSR to serve as the manager here for Gary Community Schools. Courtney, would you like to introduce this further?
Yes, these 2 items that we have before us are both actually kind of the final incentives from the prior contract. And so these 2 items are actually items that we have dealt with in the past as well. We've had these for the last 2 contract years, so they're slightly different. So the first one has to do with providing a certain dollar amount towards the accrued liabilities of Gary Community School Corporation. At the point in time that we had drafted that original contract, the target number for contract year 3 was that $500,000 would be would go towards the accrued liabilities for Gary Community School Corporation. As you saw in the report that Gary Schools Recovery has provided here, they have been continuing to work on those liabilities for the school corporation, both from the standpoint of short-term and long-term debt. And have made great strides on that during the time that they have been there. So as we look at their overall liabilities from contract year 3, which would have been summer of 2019 to summer of 2020, you see here that the overall liabilities did decline by $11 million. So certainly over that $500,000 threshold that was included in the contract. So that is the first incentive for our review. The other incentive for our review is substantial conformance with the viable deficit reduction plan. As you all know, they prepared a viable deficit reduction plan for the first time in January of 2018, and we receive updates on that every 6 months. And this particular incentive was associated with continuing to work that plan as originally designed and ensure that that plan was being implemented successfully. So the most recent update that we received on this plan was back in August of 2020. I believe at that point in time, we were again continuing to see that the overall deficit was continuing to be reduced for Gary Community School Corporation. As we have seen over the time that MGT and Gary Schools Recovery has been there, we've had a decline in that annual deficit from $22 million a year down to $6 million a year. And as Eric had mentioned earlier, we'll have that next number in probably February timeframe. So I think as we look at this and as you kind of have read through the report that they've provided, they have continued to implement the various initiatives that were listed in the viable deficit reduction plan. And we are continuing to see that the deficit is declining because of those actions. So those are our 2 incentives that are up for our consideration today. In both cases, just want to clarify, both of those are a $100,000 incentive that is going to Gary Schools Recovery, the entity with whom we have the contract. So it is going to the company as part of that contractual relationship that we have with them. I don't know if Ricardo or Eric would like to add in.
And I just wanted to say that just to kind of remind everyone that the deficit is $6 million as of June 30th, 2020, but it's going to be updated with the next BDPR update. So it might not be that at the end of December 2020. And if you want me to provide any more details on any of the items or just answer questions, I'm here for.
Any questions for Courtney or Ricardo or Eric? Okay. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the awarding of these incentives.
I'll make the motion. I move we approve the 2 performance incentives of $100,000 each per contract with Gary Schools Recovery LLC for the provisions of more than $500,000 towards the accrued liabilities of the Gary Community School Corporation and substantial conformance with the viable deficit reduction plan.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. Courtney, would you call the roll?
Paul Joyce, Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown, Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
and Justin McAdam. 5-0.
Great, thank you very much. With that, we have reached the end of our formal agenda for today. Is there any other new business to come before the board at this time?
Yeah, once again, I want to thank all the people that I've mentioned before for working with me and tolerating me and sometimes supporting me. I just wanted to underscore that again, and just to remind you that I really think that we've got to look at the academics. I'm glad that we're getting those performance bonuses, those that deal with the fiscal part of the school corporation. But we've got to work on the academic part. I just don't think 5% is enough, even in this year of the pandemic. I think that we can do better.
And again, thank you so much for your service and engagement on this board. I do hope that you'll stay engaged with us and with Dr. McNulty and the team on the ground there. You're an invaluable resource to us.
Thank you.
And I just want to give the team, Dr. McNulty and the team, a heads up. I'd like to maybe a little bit more discussion next time about the curriculum. We heard that the reading and some of the other curriculums might be a little bit outdated. So I'd like to have a little bit more discussion about that at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Problem.
All right. Well, with that, that concludes our meeting for today, and we will adjourn. As a reminder, Courtney will remind us that I'll remind you that there's a survey that will pop up when you close your window. That's not a survey for DUAB. That's a survey for the WebEx experience. If you do want to provide comments to us, you can do that at the email address or via the telephone number that's on our website. With that, thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.